Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome. It's good to see you. I think it's interesting that the gentlelady from Tennessee laments the lack of a plan. Here it is. This looks like a plan to me.
Felt like a plan putting it together.
I bet it did. This from the party that still, after 6 weeks in the 112th Congress, still has no jobs agenda, still has not put forward a plan to create jobs, not a single piece of legislation, nothing that has as many pages as this, 207 pages like this plan does. So I think that when casting aspersions about the lack of a plan, they should look inward first. But your testimony referred to $62 billion in savings from increasing efficiency and accountability of health spending. Now, we really focused on cracking down on waste, fraud, and abuse, and that was a huge priority in the 111th Congress for Democrats, particularly when we passed the Affordable Care Act. What are some of the significant policies in the budget that will contribute to that kind of savings?
Congressman, there's kind of three baskets of savings. There's one set, which is about 16 provisions, which we would call program integrity. It's to make sure that if a provider has been paid erroneously, we recoup payment. If a provider submits bills for things that shouldn't be paid or duplicate bills, we have a process to make sure we pay once and we pay properly. And that saves about a little over $30 billion. We then have a number of provisions that would give Medicare and Medicaid the ability to take advantage of generic drugs, particularly generic biologics. That saves a little over $10 billion. And then we have a couple of changes in the Medicaid program, one of which would make sure that when we have expanded coverage and less uncompensated care, we calibrate correctly the disproportionate share payments that are supposed to pay providers who are providing uncompensated care. And then there's another that just lines up the state payment rates so that there's accuracy in what they're being matched for.
The $62 billion of savings to which I just referred, is that separate and distinct from the $125 billion in savings included in the budget related to program integrity?
It's only counted in the budget once, and it is in the mandatory section is $62 billion. We may have a display that shows it somewhere else, but it's only in the numbers once.
Thank you. I want to focus on the cuts in community development block grants. In recent years, Congress has typically provided more than the President requests for CDBG. And that's obviously a program that helps local governments fund housing and sewers and streets and economic development, particularly in low and moderate income neighborhoods. I mean, let me just give you a couple of examples for folks that really don't know. Congressional speak, CDBG funds things like 3 grants in 2010 to the cities of Janesville, Kenosha, and Racine, Wisconsin, totaling nearly $4 million, and $2.4 million in 2 grants to Lima and Mansfield, Ohio. So my question is, the President's 2012 budget cuts CDBG by about $646 million, and that's compared to the CR, where the Republican cuts it $3.1 billion below, from the CR, $2.4 billion below the President. Can you classify the distinction between the President's approach to CDBG cuts and the cuts in the CR from the Republicans?
The President's budget is a comprehensive budget where we made tough trade-offs. Reducing community development block grants by 7.5% is a tough decision. We've got a lot of cities and towns that do good work with this money. But we didn't think it was necessary to make a deeper cut than that to hit the target of the $400 billion savings.
Thank you, Mr.
A chisel rather than
I'm sorry, just in the interest of time, now,
Thank you.
Gentleman from Appleton, Wisconsin, Ms. Ribble.